At Soft Week 2024 in Tampa, we met Ryan Gury, CEO and co-founder of Performance DroneWorks, an Alabama company whose story we featured in episode 23's Weapon of the Week. Since then, some big things happened for PDW, notably having its C-100 drone selected for the second tranche of the Replicator initiative. So we thought it might be a good time to catch up with Ryan and see what this means for PDW in this week's Comms Check. All right, Ryan Gury, thank you so much for joining us today with Professional Drone Works. Obviously, your background in drone, all things drone, is very diverse and deep. But you're here to talk today about the C-100 being picked as part of the Replicator program. When that news kind of came through, we all found out about it last week, but I'm sure you knew way in advance. But when you heard that the C-100 had been picked for the program, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, beyond excited, right? Like we've been working at PDW for about 7 years, um, you know, against the thesis that small drones were going to have an incredible change in doctrine and maneuver warfare, right? So myself and my team, we've been working for the medium range reconnaissance contract for probably about a year and a half. So it was a culmination of a lot of work, and we were beyond excited, right? Huge opportunity for us.
It's cool to be picked. I mean, for one, like your product was chosen as great, but it also means that are you going to be able to expand your business, employ more people? I mean, be a hire more people and put them to work. I mean, what does this mean from a business perspective?
That's a great question. Yeah. So I think from a lot of things, it validates the work that we've been doing, because, at the end of the day, we're making equipment for warfighters, right? And there's a lot of requirements and design that has to go into it. Knowing that the operators ultimately, down selected us against 40 other competitors in the space, is astonishing. Our special sauce is the combination of, elite operators and, best in world drone design. So knowing that we could, sit together and develop a product and put that into an operator's hands and have, the value come through, I think it's a shining example of what we're able to do, and execute against. And, we're excited to work on more products and expand our team, but ultimately our first job is to, get the equipment into the hands of users, and we're sending out C-100s every week. We're up to we're making a ton of them. We have a full manufacturing line, and it really allows us to scale and fine tune that part of our our program and our business.
The C-100, when I saw it, it's like a mothership drone, right? Like it's very modular. The tops you can pack on different batteries or different different kit depending on what the mission calls for. But it also the payloads are diverse. It could drop, single grenades, or it could drop guided munitions, or even smaller FPV drones, right?
Yeah, it's generally like the largest quadcopter you can carry in a backpack, right? And when we started the design of it, we took a soldier's rucksack and we designed the propellers, the frame, everything from those dimensions, and then worked backwards to really make sure that the vehicle could, excel at a variety of different missions. So, when we look at small units deploying their own air support, the volume, the swap of that vehicle is really important. And, the medium range reconnaissance is generally around that, a single soldier deploying, their own vehicle, doing that fast and tactically. And then, from the mothership concept, you can work your way down, right? So, we kind of look at the group two as still a very man-packable, tactical, type of operation and con-ups, and, work our way backwards from what they can carry.
The flight profile, right? We talked about that before. If it's a single camera, up to 70 some odd minutes, depending on how much gear and the weather conditions, it's around 34 to 40 minutes most times, give or take. What work is being done to kind of build off of that? And by the time this thing actually gets into the hands of the warfighter, that envelope might be more, right? And the payload might be more. So like the Replicator program is about building things at scale at mass now, but also it's probably going to enable you to further develop the device in the interim, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Being on Replicator and on medium range reconnaissance allows us to really push into R&D in new areas, well outside of C100. Our one of our strengths is propulsion and power design. We worked on high-speed drones for the DRL for a long time, and when we look at a vehicle, we work backwards from, the volume, the mass, and the in performance specs. C100 can fly in 40-mile-an-hour winds. Can maintain heavy payloads. And there's a lot of intricacies that go into that. The center of balance, how the aircraft reacts to changing pig control, like when you have different weight along the vehicle. But I think generally, like C100 is just a really high performance propulsion system. We use the latest materials, use the latest cells, the latest motors, field oriented control, just a lot of good stuff that modern quadcopters are built with, so that it can withstand different types of payloads and high winds and fast speeds. In terms of increasing that, we'll have to wait and see how cell design and cell density advances over the years. We have some great suppliers that we work with that are American based and do great work. But generally, we're like pushing against the very limits, as are other industries like EVs, right? So, we can change propulsion by adding motors. We can change, endurance by, larger props. But ultimately, if you want to come out of your backpack and do direct fires, kinetics, and SIGINT, that's the best, combination of variances to really get that product working well.
A lot of the work that needs to be done and is being done to fly these things in contested environments is to make sure that they can handle the electronic warfare from the adversaries. Obviously,
Yeah.
with the DRL, I mean, you guys have experience with multiple folks, multiple people operating on a single frequency, replicated like multiple times, right? How has your background helped inform your ability to make sure that the C100 is resilient, and how do we know that it actually will be resilient once it gets into the battle space?
Yeah, great question. So electronic warfare is prevalent in Ukraine and Russia, and typically once was strategic, large jammers are now more tactical, whether on, single units or organic assets, right? So the DRL actually started as a radio engineering team. We built custom radios to allow our drones to fly far away, but also to use different frequencies in case, there was heavy traffic. We're currently on our third version of that radio and in development with SOCOM. And that radio does a lot of, spicy things to use as much of the spectrum as possible and to punch through data, in areas where, RF is generally contested. In terms of GPS, we use a visual system that matches satellite images to the ground. It's commonly known as visual navigation. We have our own stack that does that really well. And, we work extensively in conditional mission planning so that parts of your mission can be tasked without you being online with a robotic at all times. And we see a lot of that in, early stages in Ukraine with terminal guidance, automatic target recognition, and so forth. I think the future of small robotics is going to be, contested. And the days of having a 1080p video feed from the front line probably are starting to, come apart, when those days may be over. But it's great to have support from the DoD so that we can invest into critical items like, wide spectrum radio usage or visual navigation or conditional mission planning, right? Things that a soldier needs so that they can be tactical on the edge, and know that that asset will come back, complete parts of the missions without being in touch with it at all times. And generally it's terrible as well, but as soon as you come online with a radio on the front lines, you're found, right? So the days of radios just being on and high power, I think they're starting to really transform and change the way that we interface with robotics on the edge.
Ryan, that's all the questions I had for you before I stop recording. Anything else you want to say? Another question I didn't ask you feel like needs to be answered?
No, that was great. I have a head cold. I have two small children, so they always get me sick. But, other than that, I usually don't sound like this. But thanks for having me, Ryan. It's great seeing you again.